Well, some things about my life as a sailor. I graduated from high school in 1946. Too young to go to the Naval Academy, to which I aspired. So I spent a year at North Georgia College, coming under the close scrutiny, of course, of my Uncle Clements, who made sure that I stuck by my studies. As a matter of fact, I would go up to the commandant at the college and say, "Sir, Cadet Barnes requests permission to go home for the weekend." Of course, from North Georgia down here. And he'd look me in the eye and says, "Cadet Barnes, you have my permission, but you and I both know full well that you've got one more obstacle, and you've got to go to your..." My uncle had strapped me in, so I got to study quite a bit. But I was ambitious enough to think that I could succeed at the Naval Academy. I was valedictorian of my high school class, but there were only 40 of us, and it wasn't the premier high school in the country. And but I thought, I'm valedictorian, I can handle this. So I went to the Naval Academy in 1947, full of confidence and full of joy at being part of a big team now. Since I had been alone on the farm a lot, it was exciting, to say the least, that I would go to the Naval Academy. But I soon learned that I had joined a much, much faster group than I had been accustomed to, because this was the cream of the crop from all across the country, some of whom had already finished college, for goodness sakes, and started over at the Naval Academy. So I had to run extremely hard and fast to stay with the middle of the crowd at the Naval Academy. But it was 4 years, of course, that shaped my life. The challenges that you're faced with at the Naval Academy. I had to memorize. The upperclassmen would give you things to do in addition to your studies and the other military things, and I had to memorize this was a first classman from Kentucky, and he had me memorize the names of the Kentucky Derby winners from 1927 until 1947, things like that. But the friendships, of course, that you form there. I roomed with the same man or boy or whatever from Miller County down in South Georgia. Walt Sheffield and I were fast. He was, of course, my best friend. He passed away in 2015. But we were together. He was much smarter than I was. Matter of fact, he was so smart that when we were about to have an exam, there would be a flood of midshipmen into our room saying, "Walt, how do you solve this problem?" or "Walt, how do you solve that one?" But things like from there, being part of the Brigade of Midshipmen when we marched into Soldiers Field, I think was the name of the football stadium in Philadelphia. 100,000 people in the stands, and you're there part of the Brigade of Midshipmen for the Army-Navy game, which was a big event, of course, for us for the years. But I think back on that, and I remember the euphoria that I had the day that I graduated from the Naval Academy, because you're under such constant pressure for all those 4 years. I suppose it must be similar to a fellow who's served his time in the penitentiary for so many years and is finally let go, that you can join life on the outside and not fear that the next step you're going to be will be something that will, the big fear, of course, was that being expelled and having to go home and say, well, I failed. So that's always hanging over you. But the euphoria I felt there, I guess, is matched by the day that I left the Navy and retired because I wanted to be home and help my mother. Is the well, it's not a sadness, but a melancholy, I guess, to leave something that you've dedicated yourself to for 20 some odd years, and to cut loose from that and go back to civilian life is it can get to you, as a matter of fact. In 1951, after 4 years at the Naval Academy, when we graduate, we choose our ships, and I wanted so much to be on a small ship with less formality and spit and polish and more like a band of brothers. So I chose the USS Rowan, a destroyer out of San Diego. And the Korean War was still on, and I was so naive as to worry that the war was not going to last till I could get there. How foolish. But we left San Diego in January of 1952 and were assigned to patrol the North Korean port of Wonsan. And we were there, and I remember coming into the harbor there, and the mountains, of huge mountains, snow-covered, so very cold and forbidding. And we patrolled there. The Koreans would bring their weapons out from caves in the hills and shoot at us every now and then, and we would shoot back. And the skipper sent me over to a little island off of the coast there in Wonsan to call gunfire from the ship. I remember when the battleship Missouri, or not Missouri, maybe it was the Iowa, would come in and shoot at those North Koreans in their hills. I had always wanted to be, ever since I'd gotten into the Naval Academy and became familiar with submarines, to be a submariner, and I put in for submarines and was accepted there at submarine school in January of 1952. I'd just been married in November, and Karen and I moved into officers' quarters on the base there while I went to 6 months of submarine school. Again, I was in with a very fast group. I think 6 of those in my class became admirals. But anyway, and I went to my first ship, the Archerfish, down in Key West, Florida. And I had a wonderful skipper who let us handle the ship almost to the point of running into things before he would, if we had to, take it away from us. And I learned so much about ship handling from him. And one memorable thing we did was go down on the missile range from Florida down into the South Atlantic. And they'd fired the missiles, and for some reason they had an unexplained error, and they surmised, and correctly, that gravity is different in different parts of the world. So we submerged every 50 miles from the tip of the top of South America all the way down to Ascension Island in the middle of the South Atlantic in 1953, I believe, or 54. I remember in the South Atlantic, where there's no land to interrupt the sea, how huge and gigantic the waves were. And a submarine's a pretty small ship. and we would riding on the surface, and you'd come up to the top of one of those big waves, and you would, like you were on a sled, go down it, and then as you came up, you would come up the wave again, and you could feel the submarine laboring to climb that to climb the next wave, and of course that's when we went below the equator, and the crew takes their vengeance on the officers there, shaves your head, and does all sorts of crazy things when you cross the equator, and you're a pollywog before you come over, and then you graduate after you pass that the equator. I was glad I'd done that as an ensign, because later I crossed as a captain of a destroyer, and I would not have liked to have been my first my first experience.